recording. You will get a notification saying that we are recording, so just accept it if you're happy with that, and we will start. So we're going to start off with Nadine, who's one of my consultants in my team, and I'll let her tell you what she's been up to and what she's cooking.
All right, hi guys, thank you very much for joining us. So like Linda said, my name's Nadine and I'm part of Linda's Thermomix team. And so what we're going to do is we're going to show you guys how to make starter for sourdough, but we're also going to show you what we do with the discard. And if the terminology throws you off, don't worry, Linda will go through all of that and let you know what they all mean, because it did throw me off. And I have to admit that I'm also a beginner at this. This is probably one of my very first times doing this. So you guys can learn along with me and see how we go. So what I've done is we've already had a starter that's begun. I'll just grab that. So that's there. And I'll go through a bit more on that later on. And as you do your starter, you've got to feed it and you've got to discard it. Don't get too lost with the terminology. We will get there. So with that discard, instead of throwing it in the bin, there is recipes on Cookie that show you that you can actually make things with them. And one of them is a focaccia. And this is specifically a sourdough discard focaccia. So I've already started the process. I've already mixed it in. And just because of timing, I went through to the point where it got proved. And now I'm going to show you the dimpling. So dimpling was one of those things that really threw me off. And I had to ask Linda, what are you talking about? Luckily enough, Thermomix actually shows you this as well. So I'll just turn the one of my other cameras to show you when it comes to that part of the instructions. Don't mind my husband running through there. It actually shows you, if you can see that on my other camera, what you need to do when it comes to dimpling. So simply, and I'll show you that on here as well. So simply, you're getting your fingers in there and and it's very sticky. So I tend to put some water or some oil even works.
I can't see you doing it.
You can't see it? Okay, give me a sec. It might be because my blur's on. So let me take that blur off. Oh, no effect.
Just Nadine is on main speaker, so if you're at the top, you'll see a slide. So move the other camera across until you'll see the dough mix in the other window. Oh, okay. Yep. Thank you.
Got that now? Okay.
Yep.
So it's basically just putting your fingers through like that and just gently putting dimples in there, and that's what they call dimpling. And they use this specifically for when you're making focaccia bread. And why we do that is because the next step it requires us to put some oil on there, about 2 ounces, or, you know, I don't even measure when it comes to this part. I just pour it in there, spread it all around. And then you can see that some of the oil has kind of seeped into those little dimples in there. And we're going to get some sea salt, plain sea salt flakes, sprinkle it all over like that. Some rosemary, if you've got some in the garden, really good time to use them. And you can just sprinkle all those on there. Now that had proved previously for about 2 hours. You're going to need another half an hour of proving, okay? So hence why I wanted to show you that part of it. Now I'll put that away. You can put as much salt or rosemary as you like. Some people put olives in there and decorate it. I'm not a fan of olives, so I'm not going to do that. I am a fan of salt, so I'm going to put a little bit more. And then sprinkle some more oil in there if you like a little bit more oil. Okay. Now, just be mindful that at the end, you will be pouring some more oil on top of that once it's baked. And then you cover that with some cling wrap and you leave that for half an hour. So we'll come back to that in half an hour where I will get to bake that once it's proved for a little bit more. Okay. Any questions on that in regards to that at all? Let us know in the chat or just pop off mute and ask away.
Thanks, Nadine. Okay, that works really well as well. I get cherry tomatoes, cut those in half, and where the dimpling is, pop some cherry tomatoes in there and it just adds another layer of flavour there. So we're going to get straight into the actual making of the sourdough, and then we'll come back to the starter because we need time for things to prove, and that way so you can see some of the process. So I've actually made the sourdough dough already. It's been proving for about, probably about 3 hours now. So you leave it for an hour, and then every half hour, you actually stretch and fold your dough. So I'm going to show you what that technique looks like. I used to read about it and think, what the hell's that? How do I know what to do? So get yourself a bowl of water, because you want to have wet fingertips when you're doing it. Okay, so just wet them. I'll just admit someone else into the... Okay, so you've got your bowl. So all you do is you gently just pull the dough away from the bowl, and you stretch. So you keep stretching, stretching, stretching. You don't actually want to tear it, and then you fold it over itself. Then I twist my bowl this way. So you want to stretch and fold about 4 times. Again, lift it, stretch it without tearing it, and fold it over itself again. Now, the reason we do this, when I first made the dough, it was really flabby, floppy, I guess you can say. It wasn't as firm as this. So imagine somebody with really flabby arms. They go to the gym, they work out their muscles, and then they've got strength. The sourdough dough is exactly the same. You want to add strength to your dough, and this is how we do it, by stretching it and folding it over. So the consistency of the dough now is very, very different to when I started off. Okay, so we're stretching and folding it, and you can see that that's pretty much all it's going, and then fold it over itself. So then I'm actually going to put this aside now, and this now rests for 30 minutes. Okay, so I'm going to keep that aside, and then I'll come back and show you what we do with that. But the beauty of doing Zoom, I'm just going to wash my hands, is that we can prepare one earlier for you guys. So this is what I've done. So I don't know if anyone's got any of the bannetons from the mix shop. They come with this linen cover inside. And I actually saw another consultant do it. And I thought, what a great idea, because I used to put cling wrap on it. But as your dough rises, it can actually stick to the cling wrap. So using the actual cover is a really good way just to keep it up and ready to go. All right, so with the banneton as well, you can actually prove your dough in there. So if you don't want any indents on your sourdough, you would use this. You would flour it. You can see this one here's lightly floured, and you would put your dough in there to rest, like I've done in this one here. If you wanted to see the ridges on your sourdough, sometimes you see beautiful sourdoughs and they've got the ridges around it, you would just dust this with flour. I like to use rice flour. It's a lot finer, and I feel it gets right in there. And when you go to turn your dough out, it comes away really, really well as well. So this is one that I did earlier. So we've done all the stretching and folding, and I've had this resting in the fridge now for probably about 4 hours, 5 hours. But it works really well if you get your sourdough to this point and put it in the fridge overnight, and then you can take it out ready to bake. So what I've also got in my oven, I've got a Dutch oven, a cast iron pot, which has been heating in the oven for about half an hour. So I'll keep that in there. It's at 250 degrees. And by using a Dutch oven, it creates steam. And that's where you get that nice crust on your sourdough. Not everyone has a Dutch oven. You can make it on a baking tray. You can also use a bread tin. So if I was using my bread tin, I would have had my dough resting in this, ready to go into the oven. Now, if you don't have a Dutch oven, make sure you've got a spray bottle with water on hand, and you can actually spray your dough. So once it goes into the oven, it will actually create steam, and the steam is what actually gives you that beautiful outer crust on your sourdough. So this one's just for the kitchen. I made sure that it's totally different to any other spray bottle. I'd hate to get a bottle of disinfectant or metho out and spray my sourdough with it. So make sure that you use a bottle that's different, or label it. Okay, so I'm going to show you what it looks like now when we turn it out. So what you need to get is some baking paper. I'll just come back down here so you can see. Have we got any questions in the chat, Tina? No? Okay, so I'm just going to turn. Beautiful. I'm just going to turn it out. You can see how easy it came out because it is floured. It's got a beautiful little bit of a rise to it. You can see that it's springing back, so it's been proving long enough. at this point now, and this is where my daughter gets really, really fancy. I haven't got her technique yet, but having one of these blades, I think lame, I think they're called, and you actually cut into your dough, a nice, quick, swift cut into it. And what that does is it actually allows the steam to escape. If you don't score your sourdough, it'll just open up and crack naturally, which is still great, still tastes good. But if you want to get a bit fancy, using one of these, you can actually indent it where you want. So I'm just going to pop it in there and just a quick, and you can see where it's opened up. And some people do beautiful leaves. I'm just going to do this. I'll do a few more on that side and maybe just one down the middle. Okay, so you can see that there. I'm just going to get my cast iron pot out. Just find. I'm always organised and then I can't find where I put things. Okay. So if you're using a cast iron pot that's got a plastic lid, make sure that you foil it. So I foiled that. It is hot, so make sure you put it somewhere where it's not going to crack your bench or burn. And then all I do is lift this up and drop it straight in to my Dutch oven. I can at this point spray it, but having the lid on is what's actually going to create that steam. Okay, so I'm going to pop that lid back on. Now this will bake in the oven for about 20 minutes with the lid on, and then another 20 minutes without the lid to get that beautiful crust and the beautiful color on the top. So I'm going to pop that in.
So Linda, if you don't have a cast iron, can they use anything else? What can they use instead?
Yep, you can use your bread tin. You can actually use a just a normal tray. So this recipe that I've chosen today is the everyday sourdough loaf from Cookie Dough. And they actually do it on a baking tray. I prefer to do it in the actual banneton and have a slow rise in the fridge. But you can do it on there. Sometimes just doing it on a tray, you don't get as high a rise with your sourdough. All right. So while we've got that there, I'm going to move on to another type of dough. Okay. So this dough that I've got here is actually ciabatta dough. Okay. Has anyone heard of ciabatta bread? It's an Italian crusty bread. Okay, this dough is very, very different to the sourdough dough. It is very sticky and very, very airy and very light. I don't know if you can see that on camera. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm going to work with
one too, but discard. They seem to be similar.
Yep. So this one doesn't have. This one does have sourdough discard in it as well. All right. So with this, you sort of have to work quite quickly. Good idea is to have a scraper on hand, and you don't want to take all the air out of this. So I gently, just with my scraper, just move around the outside of the bowl and gently just let it fall out, just by carefully. Normally work towards me so I can see what I'm doing, but just so you guys can see, I'm working backwards. Okay.
Oh, wow.
So you
and
can
those
see
scrapers
that.
you can get from the mix shop, everybody.
Yep, they're from the scrapers are from the mix shop. They're about $4 each. They're great. Great little tool to have with your bread making. All I'm going to do with this now is flour it.
So, Linda, we've got a couple of questions. Altogether, how long is the resting time for the sourdough?
The sourdough, you can do it with the everyday sourdough loaf on Cookie Dough. We rest it for an hour, and then we start folding for about an hour and a half every 30 minutes, doing that technique of lifting, stretching, and folding over. And that can pretty much well be baked straight away. Okay, because I had time today and I wanted to show you what it looks like in the banneton, I've kept it in the fridge for a lot longer. Okay, but if you've got Cookie Dough, the recipe and the instructions are all there for you. Okay, this particular recipe of ciabatta, which is also on Cookie Dough, makes 2 loaves. So what you then now have to do is cut it in half, like that, and it wants to stick together. You roll it to the side, and now again with some water, that's going to be your best friend. You just want to form it. Okay. What you need for this as well is a tea towel, and you want to flour it quite well. I'm actually going to use a baguette tray just to hold its form in there. You don't need to. I've only ever used this once, but just so I can move it out of the way so I've got some bench space, I'm going to use it. Pop a tea towel on it. And this tea towel I use just purely for bread baking. Okay, and you want to flour it really, really well. If you don't flour it well, you'll find that it will actually stick to the tea towel. And this is a little trick I learned from another consultant. A lot of people use these for your icing sugar, which is great to sprinkle on. But having one with flour is great for your pizza doughs and your bread making. So you're not having to put your hands in, you know, tubs of flour, but just make sure there's plenty of there. When I say plenty, make sure that you really coat it well. I made one yesterday and I thought, oh yeah, that'll be enough. And it really wasn't. All right, so now what you want to do, we want to lift this dough and we want to put it seam side up. So where I've cut it, I'm going to gently put it to its side. And it is a rustic bread, so don't worry, it's not going to look perfect. Pretty much in one scoop, lift it up and stretch it out into your tea towel. Okay.
You definitely can see that you need a lot more flour, don't we, when you do this?
So you can see that. It's in there. It doesn't look perfect, but it gives it a really nice finish and a rustic look. So again, with this one here, seam side up, put some more flour on there as well. And we're going to sort of scoop it up, seam side up in one motion. I'll just get it onto its side so I can put it straight in. And if you want a perfect looking bread, this one's not for you. But it does, you can pick it up and put it straight in there. Okay. What I'm going to do now is flour the top. And I don't know if you can see that on camera. I probably would have, you can see that. Can you see the air bubbles? There's lots of air bubbles. So when we cut into these, you'll see it'll be a nice light fluffy texture. Again, plenty of flour on the top. And then we're going to put this baby to sleep for about half an hour and then come back to it.
Linda, Maureen's asking, can you use a tangine to cook the sourdough in sourdough bread?
I guess you could. That would work fine. But in saying that, depending on, because I mean the tagine that I've got's not very big, so I don't actually know if that would fit in it. It'd probably be more of a free hand bread. Okay, so yeah, I'm sure a tagine would work because it's got that lid. You can use cast iron pots. And the other thing to create steam in your oven, you can pop a cast iron pop in the bottom of the oven. So for this loaf here, that's what I do. I put a cast iron fry pan in the bottom, put water in it, spray the tops of these, and that will create steam and give you the crust. Okay. So if you don't have a steam oven, you can create your own steam to get that nice crust. So I'm going to put that one aside. All right. Now I've got one other dough to show you. So this dough is bagels. Who likes bagels? My kids absolutely love them. They're expensive to buy when you've got 7 kids and they have like 2 or 3 each. So I thought I better start making it. So with the sourdough discard, this is what I do. I make sourdough bagels. And what I'll do is after tonight's class, probably tomorrow or Sunday, maybe even Monday, depends when I get around to it. Definitely Monday for sure. I'll send you out an email with all the links to the recipes that we've used tonight. Okay. So making bagels. Has anyone online made bagels before? No, lots of shaking of heads. Again, your scraper comes in handy just to pull it all apart, pull it away from the bowl, turn it over. Okay. Having your shaker. And with this one here, it makes about 8. I normally get about 9 out of it. So just roll out your dough. Again, you don't want to use anything sharp on your thermomat. So I'll go there. If you want to be really perfect, you can weigh them out. But I'm just going to be just to show you roughly, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. This one's a little bit big, so I'll steal some from that way. So we've got 9 pieces here. Basically, all you do is you roll them into balls. So we'll keep rolling them. And it's a gentle roll. So if you see what I'm doing, I'm actually using this part of my hand. I'm not squashing it. I'm just letting the mat and the friction of the mat and my hand just guiding it. Okay, so pop that there. Some people are really fancy and can do 2, but mine don't work out well, so I'll just do 1 at a time. I'm just going to put my pot of water on at the back. So I've got a pot of water, and in this pot, I've got 1/4 cup of honey. So a lot of bagel recipes use bicarb soda. I actually can taste it, and I don't actually like the taste. So even in pretzels, I can taste it. So you can actually replace it with honey. Okay, so just making all these balls up. It's very quiet on that end. I know my kids are going to have a great breakfast. My kids are going to have a great breakfast tomorrow. Okay, so we've rolled those. Now the fun part begins. I'll just move those out so everyone can see. Grab yourself a ball. I'm just going to put a little bit of flour down, pop it down. I then get my index finger and basically, really quickly, and that's your bagel.
Wow.
Okay, so do another one. And then what you do with these is you boil them for 1 to 2 minutes on each side, and then we bake them for 20 minutes in a hot oven at 200 degrees until it's the right color. Now, the recipe for this does say to brush them with egg wash. Again, I don't like the egg wash on them because when you toast them, I find it's got a really sort of strong eggy taste and smell that I don't like. So we don't actually brush them with anything. You can roll them in sesame seeds, poppy seeds. There's a beautiful everything bagel seasoning that you can make and pop on them as well, which have got onion flakes, garlic granules in it, sesame seeds, poppy seeds, salt flakes. That you can put whatever you want on them.
Are these sourdough bagels?
This was using the sourdough discard. Okay, so I can keep going, but it's quite easy. It's not hard. So much cheaper than buying them. If you've got a Thermomix and you're buying bagels, you're wasting money. You can just see how easy it is. And especially if you do get into the sourdough baking, like that's my discard container, which we'll talk about a bit later, but I can make so many things with that. Has anyone used sourdough discard? Anyone that's now come on that makes sourdough? Use their discard for anything? Okay, there you go. How good do they look?
So Linda, you know how they look amazing. Just a quick question. So that technique, did that take you long to master, or is that basically first time you tried it?
No, as long as you've got a finger and an arm that works. Just and if you didn't want to do that, I mean, I've found that this technique works, but if you didn't want to, you could just put a hold in and you could actually just stretch it and it still does the same thing.
Yeah.
Like that. Okay.
Yeah,
so I'm going to...
You can even get the kids to do that.
Sorry?
Get the kids to do the holes in the bagels.
Well, you can very easily. All right, so I'm going to put those aside for now. What I'm going to do is go back to my sourdough bread, my sourdough dough, I should say. Okay, so I said 30 minutes to rest it. It's been about 20, which is fine. So I'm now going to turn it out onto a thermomat. Been resting for 30 minutes.
So while you're doing that, I'm just going to quickly show everyone. This is what the sourdough discard looks like. If you can see that, that's some that Linda previously did for me while I was learning on the job. And that's what we used as well to make the focaccia. And we'll go through that when I get to make my starter.
Yep. Okay, so now at this point, there's different ways of doing this. I learned this from my daughter. She's watched so many videos and it works and it's easy, so I'm going to stick to it. So you could get in there with your hands now, and we want to form this a little bit now. We want to gather it together. So with your scraper, all you do is you sort of just push over the top and tuck, push over the top and tuck, push over, and you just want to tuck it. And you can put a bit of flour if it's a little bit sticky, which is fine. You don't want to put too much flour because we actually want that friction. So just tucking, tucking, tucking. Now, the other way you could do this is actually fold it under yourself, but with a scraper, it works fine. So you can see that I've created a nice little tight ball. That's what you want, that little tight ball. Okay. So now what happens with that, I cover this with a bowl for about 10 minutes and leave that aside. Okay. Any questions so far?
No, they were just loving your technique. That was it.
All right, that's great. I'm just going to rinse my hands out. Because it's a very sticky dough to work with. Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to go and boil these. I might put my water's boiling. I might take my laptop over to my stove. I don't know if you'll be able to see properly. I'm just going to take one in. No, you can see me. So I've just put one in. I'm going to get another 3. So I normally boil 4 at a time. Sorry if I'm giving you a headache.
No,
And
that looks really good. We can see that.
So they're just boiling away there. Don't want to drop my laptop in there. And I just set a timer, just by habit, just set a timer. So that way then I can go and actually do something else. So what I'll do with these ones now, I'll just gather them, put them on a tray and bring them over to my stove, boil them, set my oven and then bake them, okay? So what I'll do now is I'll put you on to Nadine and I'll finish doing these and hopefully you'll be able to see the finished product tonight. If we don't get through all the baking tonight, with the email that comes out, we'll actually send photos so you can actually see the completed product. But I think it's more important to actually see the technique because sometimes when you read it, you just don't make sense of it. It's really hard. I know that I'm a visual learner. So for me, actually seeing it being done, thinks, okay, that makes sense now. So I might even put some simple instructions together if you like the technique that I've used tonight, and then you can, print them out, laminate them and follow those if you found that it was easy. Okay, so I'll put you on to Nadine. I'm going to spotlight her now.
Perfect. And Linda, while you're doing that, we've got some people who are on here that would love your honey tip because they can also taste the bicarb.
Yep.
So they'd love to know more about the honey tip.
Yep. Okay. No worries. Okay. Back to you, Nadine.
Thank you. So it's probably been about half an hour now. So just looking at that, let's prove a little bit more. I'm going to quickly put that into the oven while you guys and we'll put that on 400, it says 400 degrees Fahrenheit, which is about 200 degrees Celsius, okay? And it goes in there for about 20 minutes. So I'll just put that on. Yeah, so about 20 minutes. All right, so I'll turn us over to the starter. So give me a second, I'll just set up my other computer so you guys can see that. Okay, so that'll give you a view of the Thermomix itself. So we haven't shown anything that we've done with the Thermomix, but a lot of the what we have done before this time was done in the Thermomix. So the focaccia, when I did that, a lot of it was pre-mixed in the Thermomix until those stages that we came on with. Okay, so this one's called an apple wheat starter, and the reason why we chose this one is a lot easier and quicker to use and make. A lot of starters can be quite complex, and for this to be my first time, it's a good starting point. Okay, and you can find this on Cookie Dough as well under apple wheat starter. So we're just going to start cooking. Okay, so it is in American metrics, but that's fine because when you have your Thermomix, it will measure everything in those metrics anyway. So it's asking for about 10.5 ounces of apples, which is about two apples that are quite ripened. Okay, so I've got about 9.2, so it's not too bad. All right, so let's go there. Okay, we put them into the measuring cup, put the lid on. Okay, next. It's going to go on for 5 seconds at a speed of 8. So you can just guess what that's going to do. And while that's happening, I'm going to get my simmering basket. Okay, it's giving us that little bell. Okay. All right, place simmering basket into a bowl and transfer the chops. Sorry about that. Okay, so what's going to happen now? I'll just turn this around so you can see it. Okay, so I've got a little, you can use a bowl or you can use a jug is what I use. So it's just easier to pour out later on. Put in your simmering basket, which Thermomix makes it really easy for you. And that is the chopped apples there, all right? And you're just gonna pour it all into the simmering basket like that, okay? And hopefully what we're gonna do with that is it's gonna get some of those juices out from the apple. Now, Linda, I don't know if you can recommend, is any type of apple better than the other?
To be honest, they say to use organic apples, but I had apples in the fridge that were just sitting there. The kids hadn't eaten, and I used those. And my starter, I'll give you a sneak peek of it, has worked beautifully. And my sourdough tastes great. So I don't think so. If you're not using organic, I would say make sure that you maybe soak them with a little bit of vinegar. And, just if there's anything on the surface, it will get rid of it. Okay.
So it won't matter if it's pink lady or so, but
no, just organic apples, they say. But like I said, mine weren't, and my starter's fine.
Perfect. Okay, so that's in there, and that's the same with me. I've just used apples that I've had in my fridge that the kids haven't eaten because they're bruised or they've got a little knot on them or something. And that's what makes the beauty of Thermomix. You can use things that most people would have thrown out, but they're still good to eat, and you can use them for other things. Okay, so you just place that into the Thermomix. It's asking us to squeeze it, okay? And it squeezes it so we can get the extracts of all the juices. See if you can see that on there. Yep. Okay.
Someone just asked if we, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
I just noticed someone asked if we need to use super ripe. They don't have to be super ripe, but like I said, mine was sort of looking not too crisp, and I used those and they were fine. So no. Someone's asked you can use a cheesecloth. Yep, whatever you want to use to strain it with, go for it. A nut bag works as well. So yeah, whatever you feel. I mean, the recipe is just a guide. You can do whatever you like to use in your kitchen.
Yeah. If you have a Thermomix, it just makes it easier because you've already got your simmering basket. But like Linda said, if you've got all those other things, a nut bag or any of those things, you can use those as well. Perfectly fine.
Hey, Linda, I'm not seeing any of the questions. My chat's not showing the questions. I'm sort of a bit confused.
That's all right. They might be direct questions. That might be why. They might be.
Okay.
They might be directly to the.
They're coming direct to you. What's it on? I thought something's happened to my computer.
Okay. So it's gonna. So I've squeezed as much as I can. You could probably do a bit more if you have a little bit more time. And then we're going to set that aside, and we're going to move back over here. There you go. All right. So okay. So we're going to put the lid back on. Okay. And it's asked us to place a glass jar. Okay, so I've just got this one from IKEA. It's not IKEA, from Kmart. They've got a few different sizes. This is a 1,000 milliliters, which is about a litre. It is a litre actually. Now that I'm doing homeschooling, I'm learning all my maths again. But yeah, and it's just a screw-on lid, works really well. And you'll see why in a minute. So you place it on top of the lid like that, if you can see that. If anyone needs a clearer picture, just let me know. All right, we're gonna put 2 ounces of the juice in there. I don't know if I'm gonna have, oh yeah, I should have about 2 ounces in there. Okay, 2 ounces when I converted it into grams is less than half, it's 1/5 actually. So let's see, thank goodness that Thermomix already does that for me. Okay, so let me pour that in there. Let's see if we can make it. We're gonna make it. Let's see, come on, just a little bit more. Oh, I didn't make it, but that's okay. You can just squeeze some more out. Linda, did you find any tricks that worked really well when it came to squeezing these out, the apple?
No, I just squeezed it. And I guess it depends on the size of your apples as well. If it's a bit under, Nadine, don't worry, just put less flour, it's fine.
Okay.
Could you use apple juice? I don't know, to be honest. Depends if your apple juice, I guess, is straight juice. A lot of apple juices these days have got stabilizers in them and additives, preservatives. So any of that, I would say definitely not. Or add water. I think if you add water, the whole reason that we've got the fruit in there, that's what's actually going to feed your flour. So adding water will dilute it, so you may not get as stable starter to start off with.
That's okay.
Good questions, guys. I'm just going to go to my oven.
Yep.
And show you what my bread looks like at this stage.
Yep, go for it.
I didn't realize I was on mute. I've taken the lid off and this is what it looks like now. Can we see that?
Oh, wow.
Okay, so now we want to get colour on it. So I'm going to pop it in there for about another 20 to 30 minutes till it's pretty much the colour that we like. Some people like it a lot blonder. We like it a bit more darker. So I'll leave it in there a bit longer. So I'm just going to set my timer and back over to you, Nadine.
Yeah, thank you. All right, so while you're doing that, I'm trying to squeeze some more apple in there because I am not game to do the maths on this. Anyone want to do the maths on it? Okay, I don't know if I've got much more in there. Okay, there we go. All right, so it's asking for 5 ounces of water, and it needs to be filtered. We're not going to put that much in there because we don't have, I'm just going to let this person in. I didn't put that much starter in there, so I'm going to do about half.
Nadine?
Yep.
I just had everyone, can you hear me?
Yep.
I just had people say that they couldn't see my bread, and that's because I wasn't spotlighted. So I'm going to replace one of your spotlights now, and that way they can see. So I'll take you back over to the oven. Sorry, guys. I've got ovens going off, bagels going off.
It must smell amazing in there.
It does. Can you see that?
Yep.
Can we see it? Thumbs up if you can see the sourdough. And while I'm on spotlight, I'm going to take you over to my bagels that are boiling away and take that light out as well. Okay, Nadine, back to you.
Okay. So the next step is asking for some bread flour. I'm using baker's flour. It tends to be probably one of the better flours to use. You can use whole wheat if you like. So this is what I'm going to use. So it's asking for 7 ounces. I'm not going to put that much in there because we didn't have that much apple residue. So,
I'm going to just cut in there for a sec, Nadine. In Australia, we call it baker's flour. In America and the UK, they actually call it bread flour, but it's the same flour, and it's a high protein flour. And the reason, let me just double check. So in the UK and the US, they call it bread flour. Here we call it baker's flour. So with baker's flour, it's a strong flour. So that anything that you want sort of form or chewy texture, you would use baker's flour for. For your normal cakes, things that are a lot softer, you just use normal all-purpose flour.
Perfect. Okay. Thanks for that. All right. So next step, remove the jar. And we're just going to mix that really well. I've got a thinner spatula that can do that. And one of the reasons why they ask you to get, if you can get a jar with a wide mouth, it's going to help your heat because you're going to keep doing this as it starts to, what's the word, Linda? Mature, or what terminology do they use for that?
As your starter gets hungry, we need to feed it. Yep. So basically,
there you go.
Yeah, you need something that you can get right in there and mix it up. And I'll show you when I come to mine as well, what jars I use, and it works better. So a narrow neck jar is probably not the best to use, something with a wider neck. That way you can get your spatula right in there.
Yeah, and I think with mine, I've probably put too much flour in this one because we didn't have enough apple, but that's fine. So what I'll do is I'll keep squeezing my apple and I'll add it in as we go. So the next step after this is just to let it rest at room temperature. Again, it says it on Cookie Dough, it uses Fahrenheit. So it says between 70 and 80 Fahrenheit. That's about 23 degrees to 28 degrees Celsius. So you can do that as well. Just before we move on, so you leave that at room temperature for about 24 hours. Did you want to go, Linda, through what discard and all that means, or the second day? So that's the first day, and then the second day you move on. It takes about 3 days to get this going, and I'll let Linda speak through that because she's got great experience with it. But this is what it ends up looking like. That. So yeah.
Linda, you're on mute.
Nadine, I had you off spotlight if you want to show them what it looks like. Sorry.
Okay. Yep, so it looks like this. That's what it looks like by the third day. And you got it chucks on it, or and that's just to allow it to breathe. And as it starts to grow, I don't know if that's the right terminology, but as it starts to grow, you'll tend to empty that out each day and then fill it up again. And then the instructions are on cookie dough as well. So Linda's great tip was she goes off 140 grams, and I've just gone off that because it's just an easy measurement for me to remember. Every time I take 140 grams out and put into my discard, I fill it back up with 140 grams of the baker's flour and 140 grams of water, filtered water, and that mix it all through, and that will grow. And as it keeps growing, you obviously get some more out. You'll see it got to the point yesterday where it overflows. Like it grows quite. It's like sometimes you wonder if it's an alien, but it's an interesting. My kids were like, "Mom, what's that experiment you got going?" So it's actually really interesting too if you've never done it before.
Okay, so I'll talk about the discard. I've just got the last couple of bagels in there, so I might have to run to those. So this discard here, this sourdough starter, I fed in the morning. So this was fed in the morning. So where I put the rubber band, that's where the sourdough starter was. And then after I fed it, it's grown this much. And I actually, when I keep it in the pantry, I do have something under it because it depends on the weather, humidity. It can overflow, and I made that mistake once and won't make that mistake again. So with the recipe for the apple wheat starter and the everyday sourdough loaf in cookie dough, I know we're speaking a lot about discard. So with the everyday sourdough loaf, you don't actually have to discard because you actually use it. If you're baking bread every day, you're using it every day. So it's like you're taking it out, but you still need to replenish it and feed it. So if you only want to be like a weekend baker, you can keep it in the fridge and then feed it once a week when you're ready to actually to bake your bread. Okay, so one stays in the fridge normally and one stays out. So this one here I fed this afternoon. You can see where the band was. It's not quite up, but if you look closely, I don't know if you can see it on camera, see all those little bubbles?
Yeah.
And sometimes on the top, you can actually see it bubbling away. It just starts bubbling. So the way you can test if your starter is alive, let me just go to my bagels for 1 second because I don't want to.
And it's got an interesting scent to it as well, guys. So
It does.
You smell it. You'll smell like it's got an interesting scent to it.
So when you first start with it, I think day 2, it starts to sort of smell like nail polish remover or alcohol. But if you smell it now, it's actually got a really nice sweet smell to it. So if you want to start baking and you're not sure if your starter is active or ready to use, a good little tip or trick, I should say, grab yourself a glass of water, get a teaspoon of your sourdough starter, and it is sticky, so it'll come away. If it's ready, it should float to the top. Okay, you can see it on the top there. If it doesn't float on the top, it hasn't had enough time to ferment and get nice and airy for you to start using it for your baking. Okay, so that's that. And like Nadine said, just use a chucks. You can use you can put the lid on, but not actually screw it on. Just have it sitting on top because you want the natural bacteria that are in the air to actually to go in there and feed this and ferment. Okay, so that's that. So what Nadine was saying, I take out 140 grams every day of my out of my starter, and I put it in a container that's just discard. And this is what you can use then to make your cookies, to make your focaccias, the bagels I made out of this. There's lots of recipes that you can find that will actually use it. I know so many people that just throw it away, and I think what a waste. I think Nadine said she's feeding hers with baker's flour. I'm doing a mixture of baker's flour and rye flour. So the rye flour I find gives it a more of a sour taste. Rye flour can be a little bit hard to get, but if you get hold of it, you can just change those ratios. I put about 120 grams of baker's and then about 20 grams of rye flour, and you get a darker loaf as well. All right, I'm going to take the last of my bagels out.
And while you're doing that, I might just speak to the guys about these.
They can see the bagels?
Yep, I'll let you go.
So there are your bagels. I'm going to pop those in the oven. You may not see them tonight, depending on how fast we finish the class. But if not, I will show you a finished product. Okay, so that's that. I'm going to go back to my sourdough bread before Nadine, just while we're still on this. So I had it covered for 10 minutes, and now I've had it uncovered for 10 minutes. And that just helps dry it out a little bit and form a bit of a crust on it, I guess. So that's that. So now what we do at this stage, we still haven't formed it. Let me just get another scraper. Got another one here. So uncovered for 10 minutes. Now with the scraper now, we just flip the dough onto the thermomat. So I want to flip it upside down. Okay. So lift it and flip it. Okay. So this is the base now, and the top is on the bottom. So this is now what we do is we actually shape our loaves. Okay. So what you do is you get, I'm just going to put a bit of flour, and I can use my scraper. So what you do with this is you fold over the middle like so. So I folded it into the middle. Can you all see that? And then with this end, I do the sides over. Grab this end, and we do the sides over that way. And the folding is really important because that's where you get your you get your air bubbles in it. And then with the last fold from this side, we go right over and cover it, and then roll it over, and that's your loaf. So if I wanted to put this now on a baking tray, that could go on a baking tray like that into the oven. Okay, I'm going to put it in a banneton again, and I'm going to keep this in the fridge and then bake another fresh loaf in the morning. So this is just my rice flour. I'm just going to pour it in there. Just roll it around like that. And then because this is the top now, we want to have it seam side up. Okay, so the top's going to go face down. Pick it up like that. And then you've got your seam side up. And then with that, I'm just going to cover it again with the other one that I've got. Like that, lift it up so then it doesn't stick to it. I'm going to pop this in the fridge in a container with a lid on as well. And that will just continue to rise slowly. And then tomorrow morning, back and ready to go into the oven. Okay. That's the sourdough breaking and the folding and all of that. Now I've got a loaf that I did bake earlier, which I'll show you. How are you going with your focaccia, Nadine?
I've got about 5 minutes left.
Okay, well, I'll keep going. I'll keep going here. I've got a board here. So that's one that I made earlier. I don't know if hopefully you'll be able to hear it as well. Can you hear that crunch? Can we hear that?
Yes, that sounds wonderful.
I've got my husband making noises in the background. I'm going to grab myself a knife. If you haven't got one of these and you're into baking bread, the Thermomix bread knife is amazing. It's got a little guide on the outside, so you can have even slices with every slice that you make. And yeah, it just looks very professional. So I'm going to cut into it. Okay, moment of truth if my technique does work. Okay, you can see those air bubbles? And that to me looks like a perfect sourdough loaf. For a beginner, we are wrapped with our sourdoughs. So that's what that one there looks like. I'm just going to pop that to the side. And this is one of the ciabattas that I made as well. So I'm going to cut into that one there as well so you can see what that looks like. And it's just satisfying making your own bread. I was going to say when guests come over, not that they're coming over lately, but you can see the air bubbles in that one as well. All you need is some beautiful fresh butter to be lathered on that and you're in heaven. Are we impressed? Because I know I am. It's always nerve-wracking cutting into it, but seeing those air bubbles is well worth all the effort that goes into the folding, the stretching, the proving time and the rest of it. So while that's going, we'll come back over here. So these ones here were proving earlier. I'm just going to show you because these are actually ready to go into the oven. So you can see there that I probably should have pulled the tea towel up a little bit higher in between because they've sort of joined a little bit, but that's fine. I'll just use my cutter to cut that away. And what you do with this is then just tip them onto some baking paper on a tray that's been heating in the oven. Spray them with water. You can throw ice cubes in the bottom of your oven as well if you want, or just have that cast iron pot to create that steam, and we'll have some beautiful fresh bread there as well. So I'll do that a bit later, and it takes about 20 minutes to bake. I'm coming back. I'm just grabbing something from the other side. And when I'm in a baking mood, I'll bake. I mean, if you're going to be stretching, I'd rather just do like 6 loaves at a time. So I make them, wait till they cool down. I glad wrap them, and then I'll foil them and pop them in the freezer ready to take out when we want to use them. And I basically just put them in the oven again just to crisp up, and it's just like having fresh bread all over again. So I like to get ahead of myself with certain things, and that's just one great thing to have in the freezer ready to go. My husband and my boys are still working. I'll cut it up into 3s and make their lunches from it, and they love it. So that's it for me. Nadine, how are you going?
Good. Let me get that focaccia out. But just before I do that, so Linda mentioned these. Now, if you become a consultant, they used to be one of our incentives that you could get. I think you can still get them, depending. Sometimes they put them on there as one of the things you can get when you get enough points. So that's how I got these ones. And ever since I got them, I'm like, yep, I want to make some sourdough so I know how to use them. So this is it's a really great way to motivate you to start doing stuff, because you have the tools, so you might as well get to it. Okay, so another tip, I found that when you do squeeze it using a milk bag or chucks, you tend to get a lot more juice out of that. So that's like extra. Is there anything you can do with it? Can you keep the extras, Linda?
You could keep the extra. I wouldn't keep it for sourdough again. I know that I had a bit extra. My kids just came in and drank what was left last time, so give it to the kids, I guess. Yeah, but no, I wouldn't keep it for sourdough again. But yeah.
Okay, no problem. Okay, let me get that focaccia out.
I'm just going to check the chat. How do you make sure you have enough starter when baking, example, 6 loaves at a time? Good question. So that's always a bit, I used to think that was very nerve-wracking, as like, you know, am I going to have enough? Am I going to like use all my starter? So that's what, if I know that I'm going to have a big bake, the day before or 2 days before, I'll actually separate and I'll start feeding 2 jars. And then once I've got taken out what I need, I'll either put one in the fridge or then just use the rest of it to make cookies or make something else with. So if you know you want to have a big bake, you can start taking it out. And a lot of people don't want to go to the trouble of starting from scratch with their sourdough. So if you guys were closer, I'd say, hey, do you want some sourdough starter? And I'd give you some starter, and then you could feed it yourself and it would replenish that way. So just by feeding it, you can feed it twice a day if you like. Some people feed it in the morning and the night. I actually got a bit worried today that I wasn't going to have enough. So I did feed it morning and night. So that way then I made sure that I did have enough. So I'll keep one in the freezer. You can actually dehydrate it as well, which I've never done. So I think I'm going to give that a go and see how that goes. And then you just add water again to replenish it. So yeah, okay. I can see Nadine's focaccia in the background there.
That looks so good. Okay, so the last tip is that you bring it out after about 20 minutes or 25. This one went in for a bit more, about 25 minutes, because my oven's not the best oven. And then you just drizzle some more yummy extra virgin olive oil. Let it rest for a little bit, and then it's ready for you to have and eat. I can't wait to get in that, but I will let that rest because the smell of it is amazing. So, yep. There you go.
Nadine, can you make the starter with apple juice?
No, you can't. So Linda answered that question previously. So with the apple juice, you got to be careful because they put preservatives and additives in there. So it makes it hard to determine the purity of it.
Yeah, so I think the question read, can you use it without apple juice? So there is different starters on Cookie Do. So you can actually, there's a rice starter, there is different starters that you can use. Yeah. I know that I've gone onto the Italian platform and they actually use beer in one of their starters as their starter, adding flour to it. So that would work because it's got yeast in it, the same concept. So you know you can change your filters on Cookie Do. So don't be scared of looking at different countries because you can translate them if you're using Google Chrome. So there's look up beer starter in the Italian platform, and there's a really good starter there using beer. All right, I hope you guys have all taken something away. Does anyone want to come off mute and tell me something that you didn't know that you've taken away? If there's any sourdough bakers out there and we haven't clarified or answered questions that people ask, please feel free, because we always learn from each other. So I'd love to hear some feedback from you guys, what you took away. Is anyone game enough now to try the sourdough? No? See lots of thank yous. No one's game to come off Zoom.
Linda, if you start with baker's flour and you want to put a bit of rye, can you mix it, or you have to stay with the bakers all the time?
No, you can mix it. So my original recipe started with just baker's flour, and then I got hold of some rye flour and I just changed the quantities. Now, I made the mistake first time I did 50-50 ratio, but rye flour absorbs a lot of water and it was really, really thick. So now I put a little bit less of the rye flour. I can see he recommended baker's flour. Originally I was using, I think it was Wallabies from Coles, but I've now got a hold of a supplier where I can get big bags of it. So baker's flour is baker's flour. It's just the protein content in it. So as long as it says bakers, it's all good. So if you had used plain flour with any of these recipes, you wouldn't get the rice and it wouldn't hold its shape. So that's why we use.
Some flours are called strong flour too. So if you look at the bakers, you can always see strong flour too. That's the other thing.
That's correct. Thanks, Tina, for that. So anyone going to start making sourdough soon?
Oh yes, definitely.
Definitely. So
yes.
was it something that scared you, Kim, originally?
Just probably just the lack of knowledge and seeing you do it.
And I'm not professional by any means. And you know what? Practice is where you're going to learn from your previous mistakes.
Gee, by the look of your kitchen, it looks very professional there.
I do like to cook. But sourdough was not my forte, like you know. So for me now, it's like, yep, I'll give it a crack and it works fine.
Oh, I'm definitely going to give it a go. Excellent,
great. Is it too cold in winter to make starter? No, not at all. I've made mine. Mine's been alive now for 2 months. I was keeping it in the pantry. When I first made it, I actually had a hot water bottle and I had a hot water bottle sitting behind it. So if you feel that it's too cold, put a wheat pack under it, a hot water bottle. We had a hot water bottle and we had it wrapped in a tea towel. A hand towel it was, a kitchen hand towel, and that just sort of incubates it a little bit as well.
Linda, how long can you keep a starter?
There's starters. Some people have got starters that have gone down from generation to generation. I was reading a baker in the UK and his starter was 100 years old.
Wow.
Yeah, so you can keep your starter for forever. So as long as you feed it, that's the main thing.
There you go, something to pass on to your family.
I think it's great to be able to pass it on. Yeah, next generation. Yep. So,
Linda, I made bread the other day.
Yes.
And it was so cold in my house because it's not facing the right way, not getting any heat in my room. So I did use a wheat bag. I wrapped it around the bowl. It was like, I only had to prove it once. It was over the top.
Yep. The other thing too, I can see someone put mine in the microwave. Let's have a read. I can't say. I put mine in the microwave with light on overnight in the winter. Perfect. If you keep it in the fridge, how often do you have to feed it? About once a week. And same with your discard. And I only learned this recently. So I used to get paranoid with my discard thinking, oh, it's going to go off because you're not feeding it, and pretty much try and use it within, 3-4 days. But it can stay in the fridge. So if I want to keep this in the fridge for 2-3 weeks, just feed it a teaspoon of flour. So it's not going to overflow and explode, but it's feeding it and it's not actually going to go off. So my daughter gave me some 70-year-old starter yesterday. Awesome.
Wow.
That's amazing. So that's been passed down. Excellent. So yeah, give it out to people. Great Christmas present, cheap Christmas present. But yeah, definitely give it a crack. There's lots of recipes on Cookie Do. And like I said, put the UK filters on, US filters on, and you will find lots of recipes. But give it a go. It's not hard. You don't need any fancy tools, really. You don't. If you don't have one of these, you can use a sharp knife. If you don't have a Bannerton, you can put it in a bowl. But if you like to invest in tools, there's lots out there for you as well. But yeah, that's about it. If there's no other questions, I hope you enjoyed tonight. I'd love your feedback, even in the chat, because this was a first for us and always can be nerve-wracking, but I think we did well. You got to see what we planned on showing you. There was no stuff-ups. I've got a child running behind me. I'm going to check on those bagels and see how they're going. Whoop. So with the bagels, they're still not brown. I'll show you what they look like at this point. They're just starting to brown up, but you want them essentially looking that colour all over. But how good do they look?
Did you delivery, Linda? You don't live that far from me. Maybe you can deliver.
No, I
some
don't
to
do delivery to you. No, I'm sorry. You can come pick up though.
All right.
So that's it for tonight. I did have a short video. I don't know if anyone's interested in the business side of things. If you are, I've got a 3-minute video. If you looked at us tonight and thought, wow, they look like they have fun, we're not having to leave the house,